Charles, last night the entire country, many European white folks in America, wanted to sit down and watch the Oscars. And there was a part of the Oscars that was so appalling and disrespectful when John Cena decided to come out on stage and make an awards presentation butt naked. Nobody's outraged. The media's not calling for him to be banned. Nobody's calling this man what this man did wrong and disrespectful, even though he took a little piece of paper and covered the little small private parts of himself. Had that been Chris Rock come out on the stage butt naked, I guarantee you they'd be calling for him to be condemned, banned, and never allowed to be part of the Oscars again.
You know, I would like to once again applaud your ability to make every single thing, even now the Oscars, to be about racism, right? John Cena is a comedic actor who used to be a wrestler, right? This was obviously a staged, planned event, planned by the Oscars, because nobody, even us white European Americans, or whatever the hell you call us, nobody watches the Oscars anymore, because none of us want a woke lecture from, and we got one from Jimmy Kimmel about Donald Trump, crying Trump said ugly stuff about me. Look, we used to watch the Oscars because it was about entertainment. It was about Hollywood that we used to admire, but it became the steaming pile of far left, condescending, weirdo bullcrap, right?
Charles,
and at least there was a funny moment.
People sit down with their children. They sit down with their children and watch the Oscars. And I believe wholeheartedly, had Chris Rock did it, had Will Smith did it, what John Cena did, there would be a different response and a different outcry.
Chris Rock was assaulted by Will Smith. Will Smith got in trouble for committing a crime.
And that was stage
because he was butthurt about his wife runs around on him after he ran around on her because he got made fun of. And he was trying to show out.
Will Smith did not commit a crime.
Chris Rock,
that was staged also.
Chris Rock, one of the nicest
guys in Hollywood. Why would Will Smith slap Chris Rock disrespecting Jada, but Will Smith didn't slap nobody who slept with his wife?
Okay, because Will Smith, we all thought of him as a hero. It turns out he was a cuckold. And no, it wasn't staged.
And then John Cena.
Let's talk about John Cena. John Cena was staged. It had nothing to do with racism.
On the stage, butt naked with that bite-sized nugget he had to cover up, was disrespectful.
Did it give you some feelings?
Hell no, it didn't give me no feelings.
Did you get some sort of?
You couldn't even see nothing that was there.
Are you playing like Puff Daddy and trying to act like you don't like it?
Let me tell you something.
It's all right, man.
You leave Puffy out your mouth now.
It's LGBT.
You leave Diddy out your mouth now. We working on Diddy.
It's 2024.
We're trying to redeem Diddy.
Just because you were attracted to John Cena's body, don't mean you got. Hey, man.
That's disrespectful.
Hey, man. Look, disrespectful to who?
Had that been a black man to come out on stage with that rod,
I think somebody was feeling some sort of way.
They'd have passed out.
John Cena, you kept it real. It was hilarious.
John Cena, you should be ashamed of yourself.
As a student of the United States Constitution, I've said for a very long time, since the immediate aftermath of the protest and incursion into the Capitol by people that believe the Stop the Steal narrative, that the use by the Democrats and the media that is collusively working with the Democrats of the term insurrection, there was some intentionality there, that it was designed to lay the groundwork to refuse Donald Trump's appearance on a subsequent ballot because of his participation in an insurrection. I've always thought it was stupid that they used that language because there was, although there was some horrible criminal behavior, that behavior was actually less than the behavior that we saw exhibited on Trump's inauguration day in January 16th of 2017, where there was incredible criminality, cars set on fire and people being assaulted, all of those cases ultimately being dismissed. We also had the social justice, mostly nonviolent protests of 2020, where we saw a tidal wave of murder, robbery, arson, burglary, looting, and crime that almost universally went unpunished. And I think that emboldened a great number of the January 6th protesters to then morph into what was clearly a riot.
An insurrection.
Right, but it wasn't an insurrection. Nobody was attacking the Pentagon. Nobody was trying, but it was called an insurrection to lay the groundwork to remove him from the ballot.
For political reasons.
Right. The Supreme Court had put their foot down in a very bare bones, unanimous decision that said calling January 6th an insurrection is not enough to keep Trump off the ballot. Now, if he's a convicted felon, there might be a whole different
Charles,
math.
I've led more protests in Texas
Right.
than any other activist.
But we can
in
agree
its
we don't
history.
want you on a ballot either.
But let's be clear. I know some real protests. I've seen some protests where destruction takes place.
That's not protest, that's crime.
That wasn't no damn insurrection on January 6th.
Well, nobody was
To me, that was a stage show. Because I've seen protests, like you say, cars have been set afire,
Right.
businesses totally, completely
That's
destroyed.
not protest, that's crime.
Innocent people have been, unfortunately, died.
Right.
Charles, let me tell you something.
You're probably to blame for all of it.
No, hold on, wait a minute now. So your wife feel good for that. You want to put something on me I haven't done. But anyway, plausible
Don't put this on me.
deniability, people. At the end of the day, what's happening with Donald Trump is a conspiracy to do one thing, to stop him from ever becoming reelected president of the United States of America.
I think Republicans
they're
are in on
willing-
it too.
I agree with you, because if you look at all of the money that continues to go at Nikki Haley, that's sending a statement to Donald Trump and his supporters that the Never Trumpers will connect with the Democrats to work against dethroning Donald Trump's efforts and desire to become president. So that conspiracy is on a global stage too, because China would rather keep Biden in office.
Well, obviously. Putin has already said it. Putin's
The
supported Biden.
European Union
Clearly.
and NATO would rather keep Biden in office. Many of our foreign enemies who don't fear Biden sure as hell feel Donald Trump. I believe if Biden wins re-election, North Korea will invade South Korea immediately. Because they don't think that Biden has the testicular fortitude to stand up and do anything about
I think
it.
the possibility that China enters Taiwan exists. North Korea lacks the military might to do anything other than send missiles and possibly, nuclear weaponry.
Now that's why I disagree with you.
towards South Korea. They
I
do
believe
not
that
have
Russia.
the military.
I believe that Russia has secretly helped North Korea develop an atomic weapon. I believe that.
I'm not. I could see them dropping a bomb. They're not going to invade. They don't have the military strength to meet the South Korean ground army. But I will say, I think. Look, I know you have that red cap in your trunk, and you're just not willing
with the
to come out.
with the Nation of
You're
Islam
not
star and
willing
crescent.
to come out
that
and
red
embrace
cap with
your
the star and
Trumpism.
crescent. I got one.
But I will say, and I've been very clear about this for years, they're both corrupt old idiots that have no place being president. And they're really only doing it for their own personal. But what Trump represents is populist. Right now, I think it's a faux populism. I don't think it's sincere. But the last time we had a huge populist movement in America was actually Huey Long, the governor of Louisiana.
Senator out of Louisiana, right?
Well, he was
he senator? I think he was senator, wasn't
well,
he?
he was both, right?
was, okay.
But he was assassinated, I believe, when he was governor.
Right, in Louisiana.
And then his younger brother, Earl Long, became governor as well. But Huey Long was a true populist, right? He was an advocate for the concerns of the participatory working class, right? The Democrats used to frame themselves as the party that looked out for the interests of people of color and the working class, right? But at some point in the last 15, 20 years, they absolutely abandoned that, right? And they became,
and a lot of black people, especially young African Americans, have woke up to the truth.
I don't think so. I think
have
there's
woke
still
up
an
to the
overwhelming
truth.
support.
There's still an overwhelming support, but it's nowhere overwhelming like it used to be 12 years ago.
Well,
like it used to be 16, 20 years ago.
When you're doing your political math, right, especially if you're a person of color wanting more access to government benefits and all that, right, or a white person, whoever you are, then people are going to vote for Democrats typically. And people that want lower taxes typically are more public safety, criminal justice.
Can Biden win the White House without winning Michigan?
I think that Biden...
If he loses Michigan, can he win the White House?
I don't think Biden loses Michigan, but I think that,
if Biden does not force Israel into a ceasefire, Biden will lose Michigan. For that uncommitted vote will flip and go to Trump.
I don't think so, and I think that
I'm telling you, Charles,
although there's
the Muslims that are leading that uncommitted vote in Michigan are absolutely committed to not voting for Biden.
There's a huge Muslim population in Michigan. I don't think big enough to sway the election. You have a huge Muslim population in Minnesota.
But can Biden win by losing Minnesota and Michigan?
You have one in Maine, and you wonder,
but can he lose?
Where did these huge Muslim with people being allowed to vote, where did it all come from?
We babies, kids, we don't die, we multiply.
Was there intentionality there, right? Why did the United States government under the Obama administration decide to place huge population. This is how we ended up with Ilhan Omar's crazy ass in Congress, is you have these huge centralized populations of asylees and refugees that you're putting, instead of having them dispersed across America, they're putting them in locations, historically largely white locations, to change the vote, right?
And it has happened in Michigan.
And it's happened in a number of places. And in fact, it's continuing to happen. And that looks like that's become the primary focus of the far left progressive Democrats.
So can Biden win the White House but lose in Minnesota and Michigan?
I think that Minnesota is important. I think Biden loses Minnesota. I think he wins Michigan. I think that it really comes down to Ohio.
Without a sincere ceasefire
I think Ohio is it.
in Israel, he will not even come close to winning Michigan.
Ceasefire. Well, Israel's offered it, right? They just want the hostages back, and those evil Islamist bastards don't want to release the women, children, and old men that they've captured.
Evil criminals or evil Islam?
Well, they're Hamas. They're an Islamist, not Muslim. They're a radical Islamist
regime. So what is the KKK? What's the Ku Klux Klan?
Well, here's the thing. The KKK...
They claim Christianity.
The KKK doesn't...
But they claim Jesus Christ.
The KKK isn't in the government
they said
in
burning
America
crosses
right
in people's
now.
yards.
The KKK is not running a country or a nation state right now. I know you would, because you're a liar.
I beg to differ.
But the truth is, Hamas...
You got a whole lot of Klan members down
love
in
this word
D.C.
game, but Hamas is just the government of Gaza. They have overwhelming support, not just in what's called Palestine, but in all the neighboring countries. Lebanon. Lebanon used to be a wonderfully mixed country of secular. You had Christians, you had Jews, you had Muslims. Now it's run by evil Islamists. They call themselves Hezbollah, but really they're just the ones running Lebanon. And you don't want to talk about Islamists.
Let me ask you a question.
Because they're monsters.
Who's running America?
Who are kidnapping. You want to talk about ceasefire?
Who's running America?
You want a ceasefire? Release the hostages. In fact, but you forget,
now, I totally
because you're
agree
a liar.
that every hostage should be released by Hamas.
On October 7th, when all those women and children got raped and murdered, was there a ceasefire in place? Oh, yes, there was. Who broke that ceasefire?
But wait
it
a
was
minute.
those damn radical Islamist
But according
bastards.
to the United Nations, Israel broke 19 ceasefires in the last 23 years.
Let's talk about the United
19.
Nations. So
Hamas wasn't the first one to break a ceasefire.
The United Nations.
But every hostage should be released.
The United Nations.
And Hamas should be punished for the pain, the devastation, and the evil that they committed and that they caused their own people in Palestine. They should be punished because babies are dying and starving to death because of what Hamas did.
It's hard to punish them when they have the billions in foreign aid that they've misdirected to their warmongering.
So who is Israel killing then?
Okay.
Is she killing Hamas or killing Palestinian people?
Hey,
you had 15 kids die of starvation. They showed the pictures. Them kids weigh 10 pounds.
I mean, we've also seen pictures of Hamas shooting at Palestinians, making them go back into war zones.
But Charles,
hold on, let me
those
talk.
pictures, Charles, of those 10 babies at a hospital who had no food, starved to death.
Can I respond?
Starved to death.
Can I respond?
That's not Hamas.
Okay. Firstly, it's horrible, right? I'm against the bombing campaign. I think it should have been a much more directed weaponization incursion. The problem really with Hamas, which Hamas is just the government of Gaza. Hamas is Gazans. It was not all Hamas that invaded on October 7th. It was Gazans, right? They started a war that they couldn't win. And why did they start the hold on? Let me finish. I'll let you go on forever. Let me finish. They started that war that they know they couldn't win because they don't care, right? Because the leadership of Hamas is all in Lebanon and Qatar and high-rises living like billionaires, and they don't care about those babies dying. They use those babies dying. They love them. And when they really die or when they don't, they fake it, they die because they want to paint the story to the world that Israel's evil and worthy of wiping it off the map.
Israel is doing some evil things, Charles.
Now, Israel's engaged in war.
And not letting food
you're
go
talking
in.
about, well, again, actually Israel for years, when we talk about genocide, they're the ones feeding the
I understand,
Gazans.
Charles, but they have not let food go in since October 7th.
But Israel keeps saying, hey, just release the hostages and this will stop. But Hamas isn't interested.
And every hostage should be released.
And when we have Russia, instead of trying to encourage the hostages being released, trying to build this new unity between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas because they want the turmoil, right? I absolutely agree that these bombing campaigns are horrific. I absolutely find the death of these just regular workaday people that just happen to pick one faith over the other is stupid. I think fighting wars over religion is stupid. I do think we have to admit, which you won't, that the real problem in the Middle East has not been the Jews. Just like the real problem we've seen across the Western world on these campuses, you don't see gangs of Jewish people going and beating up Muslims. No, in fact, you see Islamists who have overwhelming support of being violent towards Jews all across this country, all across Western Europe, and you don't give a damn.
You got Muslims attacking Jews on these college campuses.
Right, it's happening all the time.
Muslims. That's not true.
Okay, you're lying.
That's not true.
There's all kind of evidence. You're just sitting there because that's the problem.
That's not true.
You don't want to talk about real problems.
That's not true. Let me tell you who's leading those attacks.
Anti-Semitism is horrible. Okay.
Leading those attacks.
It's everybody but the Islamists.
The overwhelming majority of the protesters that you see
the teachers that have been beheaded in France by Islamists.
We said in America.
Oh.
We said in America.
Okay,
Charles.
so 9/11 was the liberals, right?
Charles, wait a minute.
It was the Jews.
No, it was not.
Charles, you used to think that.
It was Christians.
You used to think that.
But it was Christians.
Oh, it was the Christians
who bombed
that did
the Oklahoma
9/11.
building.
Okay.
It was Christians who bombed Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and killed over 3,000 people. Those were white Christians.
Okay, actually, let's talk. You
love
to trot out Tulsa. Okay, tell me how Tulsa, Oklahoma had. It was horrible. It was horrible. How did it happen? What happened? Let's listen.
It was a lie about a black man raping a white woman that was put out there. Yes, it was. Yes.
Do
your research.
No,
do your research.
Go ahead.
They lied and said a black man raped, assaulted a white woman.
You're lying.
And then on a Sunday morning, while all the black folk were in church, they got in crop duster airplanes first and dropped nitroglycerin bombs on the whole town of Tulsa, Oklahoma, of Black Wall Street, solely because of the economic prosperity of black people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and whites were envious and so jealous, they decided to make a fabricated lie to justify killing them.
Okay, so now let's talk about real history, because I know that you like to lie.
Not white history.
Let's talk. You just lie
but
so
ahead.
much it gets old.
But go ahead.
So in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a year before the incident, right, you had a white man lynched by an angry crowd, right? An angry crowd of white people were mad because he was alleged to have a criminal. Then you had a man go into a young, I think it was a 19-year-old African-American man in an elevator with a 17-year-old woman who was operating the elevator, and he either assaulted her or tripped and fell into her. No, there was no claim of sexual assault. I know you don't like truth in history, right? And to
that
the
he assaulted the white girl.
Right. Can I finish? To the white girl's
and they claimed she was sexually groped.
Okay.
Go ahead.
God, you lie so much.
That's
crazy.
A damn lie. They claimed she was sexually groped and assaulted. Go ahead.
Again, the white woman, the young white woman, refused to participate with the police, right? And that a lynch mob showed up to get this 19-year-old man, and the sheriff assured them that, hey, he had lynch mob showed up of white people to get this guy, the same lynch mob that had killed the white guy a year before. And some black residents showed up to try to protect the young 19-year-old that was in jail. And the sheriff said, hey, I got this. Let's not have this violence. I've got this under control. I'm going to keep him safe. And then there was a shootout. And in that shootout, you had 10 white men killed and 2 black men killed, right? They think it was instigated over an elderly white man told a black guy, hey, put your gun down, and it led to the shooting. There were actually, the first slaughter was 10 white guys.
You believe that lie?
It's not a lie. It's true. Let me finish. And then what you had was a tidal wave of white violence directed at black people who were completely unrelated to the whole incident. And you had this horrible massacre where they said that they usually said, I think it's 30, but it's more like it's probably 200 black people were killed.
No, the number has been high as almost 3,000.
But the hundreds of people
that the mass graves were never dug up.
And it really it did destroy, it wasn't Black Wall Street, but it was a city of economic prosperity.
But we called it Black Wall Street.
Nobody called it Black Wall Street.
Because of the successful,
The Black Wall Street has been contrived
of black-owned
by
businesses.
people in the last 10 years. It is literally just a moniker that's been developed.
And it didn't start 10 years ago. That's not true.
But
go ahead.
So we're not having honest conversation. The first slaughter was actually the 10 white guys that were killed. But then you had this mass amount of evil behavior by a mob of white people that committed such horrible brutality. And yes,
but that was the norm in America by white Christians.
But no one.
They did it in Arkansas.
No one.
They did it in Rosewood, Florida.
Conversations
the same thing
about anything, right? And you
by
also
white
had,
Christians.
You've had horrible things happen throughout American history, directed at all kind of demographics and immutable characteristics. And we have people living in neighborhoods that are just destroyed by crime, right? And nobody wants to talk about that or the psychological impacts of that. We have our police departments have abandoned. But what this is your vehicle.
You bring up a hell of a point.
But hold on, this is your whole thing. When we're talking about now, right? We're talking about this bombing and how it started and the things that Israel's doing wrong. But the truth is that it's radical Islam that has this incredible intolerance to the existence of the Jewish state and an incredible intolerance we're seeing in Europe, like of just people believing in their own religion.
You've had white guys go in the mosque and just kill all the Muslims.
No, you're just making crap up.
That's not true.
That was actually New Zealand. But all you're doing is lying. The violence is the radical Islamists.
They've had
and
Muslims
until you talk about it truthfully,
by white people also who claim Christianity.
Whitey bad. The truth is that when you want to break it down to race,
one religion is not more evil than the other.
No, one religion is more accepting of radicalism and violence and intolerance to other religions. No, around the whole damn world. And it's sad.
And even Islam, it's the same way in some places.
Like you just don't want to have honest conversations.
Like Kuwait, like Qatar, those are real liberal Muslim countries.
You want to pretend that the murder problem in America is white people.
You want to try to make it look like it's
pretend the religious violence.
And it's both sides.
So what happened in Burkina Faso last weekend?
And that was a crime against humanity.
Right. It was
by so-called lying Muslims, so-called fake Muslims,
but nobody
killing innocent people.
Right. Nobody cared.
And why? You think
where
that?
Is the overwhelming?
And why?
The saddest thing
because
is
that
most of the violence.
Because it wasn't white folks who was killed.
No, it's Christians that were killed. So no one cares.
But they wasn't white Christians. That's the big difference.
And most of the violence amongst the Islamist world is actually directed at other Islamic faiths. Right? You have the sectarian violence that's horrible, but it's people that make up crap and point and try to subterfuge and obfuscation that prevent having real conversations. We don't have real conversations about fixing. We don't have
Muslims.
We don't have real conversations about fixing crime in America because you dishonestly sit in that chair and say it's whitey. I don't give a damn what color the criminal is. I want the criminal in prison, right? And if you have a problem,
I want all criminals
in
prison, Charles.
But I don't You're a criminal. You'd be in prison if all the criminals were in prison.
I don't want a double standard of justice.
Okay, so
what I want, no matter what your color is, that the judicial system is blind. And in America, it's not.
Oh, Charles. We want equality in America?
Let me tell you something, Charles.
You've been against equality for about 6 years.
Let me tell you something, Charles. We live in a nation
I'm all for
where two judges in particular in the last 15 years have been found guilty, Charles, indicted and found guilty for getting kickbacks, sending young juvenile black men to juvenile penal institutions.
Yeah, Pennsylvania,
Charles,
I think, and where else?
That's cold-blooded.
Well, you're going to have corruption.
They had a scheme to make money as a judge by putting those young men
in. That's cold-blooded. We have to have oversight. There's always going to be corruption. There's a bunch of horrible people in this horrible world. But the truth is, what you want to do is racialize everything.
No, I don't, Charles. I'm against crime, brother.
To create.
I'm against crime, Charles.
To blockade
solutions. I've turned in more black criminals wanted by law enforcement than any other activist in American history. That's a fact, over 71.
Okay.
So don't tell me I'm not against crime. What I'm against, Charles, is this. Oh, and let me make this clear. Not one goddamn dollar of Crime Stoppers money has ever been paid to me. Ever. That's a lie. Because their policy,
I didn't say that. I thought you got paid as a media consultant,
their policy has never allowed them in Crime Stoppers to pay activists, pastors, ministers, or community leaders. People don't know that. But Charles, the problem in this country, let's just be real. Let's just call it for what it is.
Is we keep electing idiots. Go ahead.
Charles, as bad as America has been on some things, historically, and still to this day, there's been a lot of great good about this nation that we have totally abandoned, man, and got away from, that both sides, black and white, benefited from. The things that we're allowed to take place now in this nation, Charles, is crazy, man. We fought for black mayors, black police chiefs, black elected officials, and we got that. But then crime shot so far through the roof. That's what we fought, and that's what we fought for. Instead of black elected officials telling the truth on behalf of the black community. They don't do that because they be seen as going against a party that they're affiliated with. That's criminal against the people, man. The homeless problem in California, we both have seen that.
It's horrible. Well, the homeless problem here is horrible. Not nearly as bad as there.
I ain't never seen nothing like that.
Austin, it used to be as bad.
Charles, I've never seen nothing like that,
It's
Charles.
crazy. It's terrifying. Kids at parks,
I
terrifying.
didn't even know you could do it.
Right.
I didn't know you could do it like that.
That's
I'd never seen
horrible.
nothing like that.
You know what? It looks like Bangladesh. It looks like a third world country.
It looks like a third world country, Charles. And nobody wants to call out in that city the governor for not doing what he needs to do because he's a Democrat and they're Democratic voters.
The mayor either.
That's pathetic, man.
Karen Bass ain't
That's
doing
pathetic.
her job either.
And now, Mayor Eric Adams in New York, he wants to all of a sudden now get tough on immigration. And the city council now came out against him last week.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to support that.
Well, that's the thing. Democrats the Democrats in
trouble in this
power,
country,
not
man.
the people that vote Democrat, the Democrats in power, they don't want to fix anything because the problems actually benefit them, right? They create more indentured voters that have to support them forever, and they assume
that's the
support.
whole scheme.
And this far left progressivism that has abandoned the centrist Democrats of yesteryear has resulted in this radicalism and this decline in quality of life. Because really what they want is they want all of us chained to our tablets, not owning anything in a dead-end job. And the Republicans do too, because it's all this new effort to control. By tearing down America, they're stripping away all of our individual liberty, and it's disgusting. And it's time to get back to a better America.
Now, you might disagree with me on this, but I firmly believe this. This immigration, what they've allowed to happen with the immigration situation problem in America, the Democrats, I believe that they begin to see that, one, large numbers of African Americans were staying home during elections, not getting out to vote anymore. Mm-hmm. The young generation of African Americans were now not being aligned with principles and ideas of the Democratic Party in a sense when it comes to black people and what we get out of the relationship. And because of that, I believe that their plan was we need to bring in a whole new voter block because we're not going to get a big, large voter block coming from the white community or the Asian community. So we have to bring in a whole new big voter block. Let us trick the new voter block the same way we trick black people with welfare and handouts. They were allowed to come across the border to get into this country with a plan by Democrats, I believe, to help expedite the process quickly to allow them to vote. And when that happens, they would maintain power and leverage in this nation because they felt they were losing black people as that voting bloc.
I think to some degree you're right, but the truth is that, I mean, what I see as the truth is that this is an assault by the American government and the people that are permanently entrenched in the government on the freedoms expected by the American people, right? And if you tear down America from the inside out, if you get academia teaching the kids today that capitalism is evil, and of course the very rich that control both parties but have a long control of the Republican Party, they don't care. They don't care if there's good schools. They don't care if you have access to quality education. They call it socialism if we want health care, whereas there is a lot of benefits to collectivism, right? That's why you're part of a country, is to have a government where you don't want the wealth all polarized with the super rich, which the Republicans bend the knee to. And the way they keep that control is by using God, which they're using falsely, right? Republicans don't give a damn about morality, right? Because if you read the New Testament and you cared, you know, it wouldn't just be arguing for kids before they were born. You would want those kids to have great lives after they were born. But the Democrats, on the other hand, they are trying to destroy the concept of individualism, right? And they were successful with poor America and black America by creating this impression that they had to be on the government teat, right? While not really providing enough to allow people to build better lives. If you remember, before all this turmoil, before we all were being bombarded by the media, by academia, and by our government to hate each other, white to hate black, black to hate white, every immutable characteristic to hate everybody else, Christians to hate Muslims, Muslims to hate Christians, everybody to hate Jews, all this anti-Semitism. You know, there was a time, and I hate to say it, but the reality is during the Trump administration, where Bitcoin and other types of cryptocurrency were threatening the hold that the governments of the world had on their people, that we had an unprecedented time of almost total employment, at the lowest black unemployment in the history of our country. We had an assault on some of the idiotic parts of our government, which is the oppression through the war on drugs, and we're really all tasting a lot better times and freedom. Then we had this pandemic, then we had this law that no one seems to care about anymore. We've had the raising of interest rates that have crushed the middle class. And for me, I think this is a war on freedom, a war on liberty,
but they
and
used
it's
the
horrifying.
pandemic as a weapon against Donald Trump. and he never lied.
Well, Trump dug his own grave too.
But
I mean,
wait a minute.
Trump lied,
But
stole,
no,
he did all.
Trump
Trump
was
is
the
awful.
first one.
Biden is awful.
Look,
The
I'm
question
not
is,
a Trump
who's
supporter. I'm
the
never
one-
going to vote.